Hello and welcome to the online version of the workshop presentation for our Cambie Corridor Phase 3 Fall 2015 workshop series. This online presentation recaps the information presented at the Phase 3 workshops for Sub-Area 4 held on November 7th, 2015. This workshop is focused on the Oak Ridge-Langara neighborhoods, discussing the area from about West 41st Avenue to West 57th Avenue and from Oak Street to just east of Cambie Street. Supporting materials used at the workshop are available at vancouver.ca/Cambie Corridor. The workshop started with this introductory and overview presentation, followed by a session looking at the proposed Phase 3 focus areas, and a second session looking at the unique sites and areas within the neighborhood. The session was wrapped up with a short questionnaire to get participant feedback on the workshop itself. We're excited to get the dialogue started and look forward to a respectful and productive workshop series. We are here to listen. This means that success is hearing from everyone who wants to share their perspective today. It means providing a safe and accommodating environment for input, engaging in respectful dialogue, and acknowledging that every participant brings information, points of view, and ideas to contribute. Many of you are likely familiar with the Cambie Corridor Plan, but as a reminder, it's intended to guide new growth and development in the Cambie Corridor with a plan for land use, supporting infrastructure, and amenities. It's intended to provide clarity about what can or can't be done with a property. Cambie Corridor planning started in 2009 with the terms of reference outlining a three-phased planning process. In 2010, Phase 1 set high-level planning principles to guide planning for the overall corridor. In 2011, a plan was prepared to guide land use and building form for properties along major streets in the corridor, and to provide some early guidance on amenities, public benefits, and the design of the public realm. This plan is guiding the new development underway in the corridor today. We are now in Phase 3 with the objective to explore opportunities for more ground-oriented housing and more options for families with children. It is also an opportunity to explore options and considerations for unique sites or areas within the corridor. And Phase 3 will further coordinate amenities and public benefits and provide more direction for the design of public space. When talking about Phase 3 focus areas, people often ask what we mean by ground-oriented housing. Ground-oriented housing can take several forms, and the following few slides provide some examples of the more common ground-oriented housing types. Townhouses are a key form. This example shows a courtyard row house with a row of units at the front of the property and a row at the back. This configuration creates a courtyard space in the middle of the site. Stacked townhomes are another form with units above and below one another, each with their own door to the ground level or outdoor space. Townhousing can also take the form of a traditional row house with units arranged side by side, having access from both the front and rear of the site. Triplexes are another form of ground-oriented housing, and these can be arranged with units one above the other or located side by side on the site. Duplexes are another type of ground-oriented housing, with dwellings arranged either front to back or side by side on the site. Small house infill at the lane with a single-family house or duplex is another form, and this is often done with heritage properties. So why do Phase 3? Phase 3 provides an opportunity to advance citywide goals around affordability, livability, and sustainability. We know the Cambie Corridor and the overall city have a large number of single-family homes and apartment options, without a lot of options in between. Phase 3 can begin to explore more housing options to fill this gap in the housing continuum. We also know there's a lot of development activity happening in Phase 2 areas along the major streets, and Phase 3 provides an opportunity to create a built-form transition to surrounding single-family areas. It's also an opportunity to create greater clarity and certainty about the future of shoulder areas beyond Phase 2. And Phase 3 provides an avenue to explore more housing options for Vancouver's diverse and growing population, especially for families with children. The Phase 3 planning process started in spring 2015, and we're now nearing the end of Step 1 of a 4-step process that's expected to take about 2 years. And through the Fall 2015 workshop series, we want to specifically talk about the proposed focus areas for exploring potential change. We'd like to confirm and refine the focus areas with the input from these workshops, and we'd like to explore how different ground-oriented housing types, like townhouses, could fit in these focus areas. We'd also like to talk about some of the unique sites and areas within the corridor, discussing what's important about these sites or areas, and getting feedback on key considerations for future change. The workshops for the Oak Ridge and Langara area, also referred to as Sub-Area 4, are the 7th and 8th workshop of 11 we will be holding in 6 sub-areas in the overall corridor. We're holding these workshops throughout October and November, moving from north to south, engaging in a local level discussion and getting input from each of the unique neighborhoods along the corridor. While this workshop is on focus areas and unique sites, we know there's more to talk about in Phase 3. Future dialogue will include discussion of things like transportation, public amenities, the design of public space, and housing policy. So how will the workshop input be used? The feedback and input will be collected at each of the workshops. It will then be taken away and analyzed by staff, both from a technical and policy lens, thinking about things like housing, character and heritage considerations, urban design, and the overall objectives of Phase 3. That analysis will be used to prepare recommendations in combination with policy development as we move through the next steps in the planning process. And there will be ongoing consultation throughout Phase 3. Before getting into the workshop discussion on focus areas, we want to provide a bit of background on the corridor and its population. We know the corridor has a high proportion of households with children, at about 29% compared to 22% in the city overall. This is consistent for the central portion of the corridor, the area of discussion at this workshop. About 34% of the corridor population indicates Chinese languages as their mother tongue. This is about 44% in the central portion of the corridor. As is typical in other South Vancouver neighborhoods, the corridor is predominantly single-family, with a majority of owners versus renters, and about 56% of dwelling units in the central portion of the corridor are in a single-family house. Within the corridor, there is a unique concentration of heritage and character homes in the King Edward area north of 25th Avenue. About 63% of single-family dwellings in this area, north of King Edward, were built before 1940. This is an important consideration for Phase 3, as this change is notably moving south of King Edward Avenue. We are now going to get started in the first part of the workshop, looking at the proposed focus areas. We worked through a number of criteria for the overall corridor and feel we are fairly close in defining a focus area for discussing potential change. The focus areas are shown in gray on the map to the right. Unique sites are shown in blue and will be discussed later in the presentation. The focus area criteria looked at areas one block off Phase 2 apartment areas that are covered by the approved Cambie Corridor Plan policy. It also includes areas adjacent to major project sites, like the RCMP site and Langara Gardens. The criteria also looks at a buffer area in Marpole, west of Phase 2 properties on Cambie Street, and this is based on direction from the Marpole plan. The criteria also includes property along Oak Street, building on the Marpole plan and Oak Ridge Langara policy statement, and this will look at both sides of Oak Street. This slide shows the specific portion of the corridor under discussion at this workshop. It generally stretches from West 41st Avenue to West 57th Avenue and from Oak Street to just east of Cambie Street. The next few slides show more detail about the neighborhood under discussion at this workshop. The blocks shown in black are the Phase 2 areas with approved policy. This is where the corridor is seeing construction of new mid-rise apartment buildings based on the approved Cambie Corridor Plan. Policy for Phase 2 areas provides direction for mid-rise development, typically in a 6-story form, with buildings transitioning higher near Canada Line stations. These developments also transition to townhomes or step building features to scale down the height at the lane. Here's a sketch from the Cambie Corridor Plan showing the mid-rise forms envisioned along Cambie Street. Many of these sites are currently under development. Phase 3 shifts the focus of discussion to the areas in behind. These areas in yellow are the blocks we want to discuss for potential change as part of Phase 3. The yellow area indicates the proposed focus area for discussion of potential change and new housing options. These are the areas under discussion during these workshops. The areas in blue are the unique sites and areas and will be discussed later in the presentation. These include the 3 corners at the intersection of Cambie Street and West 41st Avenue, which is based on direction from the Cambie Corridor Plan to further investigate the future of these sites through Phase 3. It also includes the apartment area west of Oak Ridge Centre, the Salvation Army site on Oak Street, and a group of properties at Laurel and West 57th Avenue. This slide shows the key areas we're discussing at this workshop, in yellow and in blue. This neighborhood also includes major project sites, shown in orange. These are not the focus of discussion at these Phase 3 workshops, as they're addressed through their own comprehensive planning processes. Again, we think we're fairly close with the proposed focus areas based on the criteria and background work done to date. And through the workshops, we want to work with the community to review the focus areas, confirm they're in the right locations, discuss any rationale for adjustments or other key considerations, and gather feedback from the community. To support the discussion of Phase 3 focus areas, a ground-oriented housing ideas book has been prepared. This is a collection of possible housing types to start the discussion of potential new options for Phase 3 focus areas. We expect this document and the options within it to evolve moving forward in the process. This slide shows a few images of the housing types shown in the booklet, and I encourage you to check out the booklet online at vancouver.ca/Cambie Corridor under the Documents tab. Also available on the website is the Cambie Corridor Community Profile, covering off a range of more detailed information and background on the corridor. So we think we're fairly close with the proposed focus areas and want to roll up our sleeves through each of the workshops to answer the following key questions. Do we have the focus areas right? If not, where should adjustments be considered? And importantly, why? And what do you think of the housing ideas? Some things to keep in mind. What is the relationship between the focus areas and Phase 2 areas? What kind of housing choices are available in the neighborhood? Are there a range of family housing options in the area? How might lot patterns and sizes influence the focus areas? What's happening next door or across the street or lane? And are there heritage or character elements to consider?
And now we move on to the second part of our presentation, focusing on unique sites. Unique sites are different than the focus areas. They are typically larger sites with unique conditions. For example, they may have rental or seniors housing on them. They may have commercial uses, or they may provide city serving or even regional or provincial serving functions. Also, most of them have been flagged in previous planning and policy work. For example, the Riley Park South Cambie Community Vision, the Oak Ridge Langara Policy Statement, or the Cambie Corridor Phase 2 Plan. Some of this planning work is over 20 years old at this time. For this workshop, there are 3 unique sites. You can see them in blue on the map marked with a yellow star. The first one are the 3 corners at Cambie and 41st Avenue. The second one is the Oak Ridge apartment area just southwest of Oak Ridge. And the third one is the Salvation Army and West 57th and Laurel precinct located at Oak and 57th Avenue. The first unique site area is the 3 corners located at the intersection of Cambie and 41st Avenue across from Oak Ridge Centre. There is existing Cambie Phase 2 policy for these sites which allows up to 12 stories. However, the Phase 2 plan also includes direction to revisit these 3 corners during the Phase 3 planning process. Now here you see a map including the envisioned built form along the arterial streets through the Cambie Phase 2 planning program. And you see the 3 corner sites noted in yellow. Some things to consider as we explore the future of these 3 corner sites include potential impacts on existing and anticipated development on the surrounding Phase 3 areas, as well as determining the appropriate relationships between mid-rise and potential tower building forms along Cambie Street. The second unique site area is the Oak Ridge apartment area. There are 11 sites of various sizes in this area, including market rental buildings, co-ops, and non-market seniors housing. Most of these buildings were built in the 1960s, and there is a diversity of forms, including 2-story apartment complexes to 9-story buildings. Rental housing is a critically important part of the city's affordable housing stock and is protected by the city's rate of change bylaw, which requires replacement of the rental units if redevelopment occurs. During the Phase 3 planning process, we want to explore long-term options for this area, looking at opportunities that complement or enhance the existing housing options, including infill options. And the last unique site area is the precinct located here at Oak and 57th. The site to the west is the Salvation Army site and was formerly a transition house for women in the corrections system. It was decommissioned in March 2015 and its residents have been moved to other Salvation Army sites in the city. It was identified as a reserve sub-area in the Oak Ridge Link Era policy statement with high-level directions allowing redevelopment. The other area for consideration are the lots located immediately to the east at West 57th and Laurel Avenue, also located in the Oak Ridge Link Era policy statement reserve sub-area. So we really are scratching the surface on these unique sites at this time, but we want to understand what's important to you and what matters to you about these sites. We want to address policy gaps and update existing policy, recognizing changes may be appropriate as time passes. And we want to explore how these sites could evolve in the next 30 years. The workshop is supported by profile sheets such as this. They include site and policy information, photos, and maps to help familiarize you. These are all available online. So for the unique sites, we want to understand what's important to you about these sites and what are some things we need to consider when thinking about the future of these sites. So this concludes our fall workshop that took place for Area 4 on November 7th. We thank you for watching and look forward to your continued participation.